देखते हैं फिर. So let's now understand a few of the things related to user management, जिसमें आपको setup, audit trail, login histories, and the remote site setting. तीन चीजें पढ़नी है. After that, today we are going to start with the role hierarchy. So first of all, let me describe you what does it means by a setup, audit trails, and then what is login history, and majorly like what is the difference between audit trails and login history. That is important to understand. Okay, so if I wanted to see let me describe from the theory itself. So if I wanted to see when because we created a few different users, last lecture में काफी पहले से ये describe कर दिया है मैंने कि we have created these of the users, like we have customer, development manager, and testing. So now if I wanted to track when a particular user has been log in and log out, कब उसने log in किया था, कब log out किया था, and what how many period like he was into the login, how many period after how much time he has been logged out. So if I wanted to see this information, then I should go with the audit trails. तो इसके ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन ये रहता है आपको कि व्हाट इज मीन्स बाय द ऑडिट ट्रेल. तो हम पहले काम करते हैं, पहले ऑडिट ट्रेल देखते हैं सो दैट वी कुड जस्टिफाई कि हाँ हमारे आंसर्स में ये पॉइंट रहने चाहिए. सो यू नीड टू गो टू फिर सेटअप एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर इन द सिक्योरिटी कंट्रोल इटसेल्फ यू आर गोइंग टू फाइंड दिस ऑडिट ट्रेल. सो लेट्स डू विद दैट. So I'm going with this setup and the administrator. Then we need to expand the security control. So in the security control, we have an option for the audit trails. So let me find out those option. Setup audit trails, session, security sharing, password session, single sign-ons. Where it is? View setup audit trail. See, this is the option. Okay, so we need to click this. Now this is the information. This is the information. This is something called as audit trail. So what does it actually shows? First thing is date, like when the user has been logged in, and what is the action that he has performed, and when he was logged out actually. So it shows like it shows like the manager user, it shows like the development user, it shows like the customer user. So this particular user has been logging on to this date at this particular time. BST is specific, specific times actually. So you can convert this into IST. If you, there's a simple calculator, if you try you Google's like BST to IST. So it's a plain simple calculator is there. So this is the way, we used to convert Pacific times into the Indian standard times. So setup audit trail is just a kind of thing where we could see the users login and log out information. That's it. Right. Apart from this, it doesn't indicate any other informations. So this is what the setup audit trail. But I'm telling you one better option for this. If I just want, if I wanted to see some more information, like apart from this, the login and the logout, what kind of activities the users has performed, and what was the IP address, what was the, I could say, what was the IP address, then what was the actual address, I mean, what was the country name, from which country, from which state, and from which city, and from which longitude, and then latitude, all those things. He has been logged in from where exactly. So if we wanted to have, all this information, then we should go with something called as login histories. Okay. Now, this is not a part of security control. First of all, your audit trail is a part of security control, but login histories is a part of manage users to settings. So basically, this login history, login history tells more about this. If we are onto tracking, if we are tracking some of the users' activity, for example, I wanted to track this customer users' activity. So if I go with this audit trail, so the audit trail will tell me only two things, like when this customer user and how many frequency this user has been logged in, and then how many, what was the frequency of logout. So this is the only information what I could get with the audit trails. But if I wanted to have some more information on this, apart from this login and the logout history, I wanted to see some more information, then I should go with the login histories. I should download the login histories rather. तो दिस इज वन ऑफ द डिफरेंस. अभी तो आप देख लोगे इसको, अभी ऑडिट ट्रेल्स आपने देख लिया. लेट्स नाउ गो विद दिस नेविगेशन एंड लेट्स डाउनलोड द लॉगिन हिस्ट्री so that we could understand what is the difference between the login histories and then audit trails. Okay, so for this, I need to go with this navigation. So I'm going with that. I'm just expanding the manage user setting over here. And here is something called as login history. See, you click on this login history and let's download this. So you could download it into this comma separated value, CSV value, or you could download it into the, zip form also. It's really up to you. So what I'm going to do is like, there's a button download now. So I'm just downloading this login history. And see, I have come up with this. Let me open this file. So it's a comma separated value, and it's a CSV file. Let me make few of the formatting so that हम इसको ठीक से देख पाएं. And all borders all over, yeah. Now you could see this is something called as login history. So the first column over here is what? Username. So it will indicate like which of the user has been logged in. What was the time? What was the time? Specific date time according to PDT जिसको बोलते हैं. According to PDT, what was the time this particular user, like training batch user, customer user, testing user, manager user, all this have been logged in. Then what was the IP addresses? What was the IP addresses there? From which they have been logged in. Then what was the application through which they are logging, because we are using that login.salesforce.com, so it will indicate the application. If we use something called as webisser, something like that, so it will indicate some other for this. Then what was the status of login? What was that? Whether the login was success, whether the login was failed. If it was failed, why it was failed? Then what was the browser that the user were using? What was the browser that he was using? Then apart from this, what, like Firefox tha, Chrome tha, what was the operating system they were using, जिससे उसने down application किया है. Then there are so many other informations, like if I just tab it, so what was the login URL, किससे login किया उसने, ठीक है. So you have used this URL to उससे login किया, या फिर अगर अपन ने जब इसको for the first time when we were activating this user, so we have we have routed to this particular URL, so that is also with there, ये URL से हुआ है. इसके बाद में few more informations like what is the country code, what was the country for which he has login. Then like in the country subdivision indicates your state, kaun sa state tha. Then it will indicate the city also, kaun si city thi. And then postal codes, and then latitude, longitude, every information. So this is what happened. If the administrator wants, he could download this information and see क्या आपने अपना लॉगिन आईडी पासवर्ड किसी को शेयर करके रखा है क्या. I mean, if you see, if you thought के say if you wanted to take some of the support, for example, probably, then what you usually do is कि आप अपना लॉगिन आईडी और पासवर्ड शेयर कर देते हो सपोर्ट पीपल को, and then you thought कि चलो अपन किसी वजह से ट्रैक नहीं हो पाएंगे. तो ऐसा नहीं है. If the admin want, he can track. If the admin want, he can track. Because see, these are the informations, these are the information from where he could see कि ये कहाँ से लॉगिन हुआ है, पंजाब में मोहाली से लॉगिन हुआ है, कैसे हुआ है, कब हुआ है. So this is some of the questionable quantity. उसको ये क्या करेगा, he will just highlight this entry. What he will do, he will just highlight this entry. He will download the login history and then he will highlight this entry. कि ये how come this is possible? How come this is possible for this user? What was the user? So for this user, if this is your email ID, if this is your email ID, how come this is possible? But IPs भी change होते हैं यहाँ पे. See, the IPs are different, right? IPs are different over here. So how come this is possible that somebody is logging from onto your password? How come somebody is logging? Oh, sorry. How come somebody is logging from Punjab, Mohali, something like that? So this becomes a questionable quantity. तो अगर सपोर्ट लेना है तो उसके मैं तरीके सिखा दूंगा आपको आगे चल के. By using the session ID का concept है ना, by sharing the session ID हम लोग करते हैं, we used to provide this. मैं आपको वो भी ट्रेनिंग देता हूँ कि अगर आपको लेना है सपोर्ट तो किस तरह से लिया जाए बिना ट्रैक हुए. बिकॉज अगर आप डायरेक्ट क्रेडेंशियल शेयर करोगे ना तो ये चीजें हाईलाइट हो जाती हैं. And then administrator download the things and he could be ask you कि ये कैसे हो रहा है आपकी आईडी पर कुछ अलग जगहों से कैसे लॉगिन हो रहा है. इसका मतलब ये कि आप अपना क्रेडेंशियल आप शेयर कर रहे हो, फिर आपका यूजर जो है ना उसको डीएक्टिवेट कर दिया जाता है और प्रोबेबली फ्रीज कर दिया जाता है. अनलेस एंड अनटिल वो इशू क्लियर होता है, तब तक आप फिर और पर लॉगिन नहीं कर सकते हो. तो इसका तरीका होता है, वो कैसे करते हैं वो कभी और किसी दिन बात निकलेगी तब बताऊंगा किस तरह से बिना ट्रैक हुए हम सपोर्ट ले सकते हैं. और हम विदाउट शेयरिंग दिस होल इंफॉर्मेशन हम खुद ही लॉग इन करके कैसे सेशन आईडी शेयर करके किस तरह से आप सामने वाले को एक्सेस देते हो दैट ही कुड स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन योर और वो ट्रैक नहीं होता है। तो उसका एक तरीका है, वो फिर कभी किसी और दिन बात निकालूंगा। लेकिन अभी इस वक्त इंपॉर्टेंट ये है आपको जानना कि विद दिस कंसेप्ट ऑफ लॉग इन हिस्ट्रीज, with the concept of login history, there are so many informations. There are, see, all these are the informations that so it's all these informations are on the trackable point of view. The person is on always on the radar. So if you share your credential with somebody and he's logged in with that, so it's going to be tracked. पर कंपनी में चलता है आपके यहाँ पे तो फिर ठीक है, अगर नहीं चलता है तो फिर दिक्कत हो सकती है। तो उसका जो दूसरा तरीका है उस पर कभी और बात करेंगे, बट ऑलवेज बी कॉशियस विद दिस थिंग। whenever if you wanted to take some support for your work, please don't share your password and id with someone, ठीक है, वो ध्यान रखना, because these are something which is a trackable quantity in the Salesforce. And if the admin wants, ये option admin के पास ही रहता है by the way, तो admin want, he could download this login histories and then he could track, he could track and then he is going to highlight this कि ये कैसे हुआ। उतने पीरियड तक फिर आपका ये चला जाता है ना, उतने पीरियड तक आपका एक्सेस चला जाता है फिर आपसे। सो ऐसी गलती नहीं करना चाहिए सभी लोग, राइट। वन सेकेंड, चलो। सो द नेक्स्ट इज लाइक आफ्टर दिस, लेट मी गो विद द सेकंड थिंग, ऐसा रिमोट साइट सेटिंग। तो रिमोट साइट सेटिंग बेसिकली कैसा है कि अभी तो कम, लेकिन हाँ आगे चल के इसकी जरूरत हमको पड़ सकती है जब हम किसी थर्ड पार्टी वेबसाइट के साथ में सेल्सफोर्स को इंटीग्रेट करेंगे। whenever we integrate Salesforce with some of the third party system, तो उसमें कैसा है कि for example let me show you that. Let's go to the security control. So in the security control we have this setting called as remote site settings. Okay, let me just find it out over here. In security control में see there is remote site settings of the option. So whenever you for example if there's a website, or let's कोई वेबसाइट है जैसे कि weather map, something like that, accurate-weather.com. For example, if this is a website, and I'm building some of the application, some kind of application I'm building where actually we have integrated, few of the services from this website. Now, for example, जैसे कि we are building a kind of travel, जैसे make my trip वगैरह है ना, so we are probably building a similar kind of application. So in that there is a form, okay, if the person enters the city name or probably the zip code or some address, something like that, so we will display weather informations for next 7 days or next 5 days or next 3 days, something like that. तो ऐसा कुछ हम बना रहे हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल लेट्स जस्ट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड एग्जाम्पल कि वी आर बिल्डिंग अ काइंड ऑफ एप्लीकेशन जहां पर हम मान के चलिए कि यूजर एंटर कि वो कहाँ जाना चाहता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल ही वांटेड टू गो टू मुंबई, so we should display after capturing this information from the user ki from which city you are probably planning to go, so in the next 3 days or 2 days, whatever. So we should display we should display the weather conditions for that duration जिसने उसने डाला कि मैं इतने ड्यूरेशन से उतने ड्यूरेशन तक मुंबई में हूँ। So what could be that? तो अब वो कैसा, वो कहाँ से लाएंगे हम लोग? तो फिर कैसे है ना कि see without integration responsive websites नहीं बनती, ये मान लो। Integration is a fact. Integration is actually जितने भी आजकल एप्लीकेशन बन रहे हैं ना, तो to make the application more responsive we actually go with the integration, and integrations are everywhere in the practical application. Without integration मुझे तो नहीं लगता कि कोई अच्छा CRM बन पाता है, because for every CRM there is something which we need to import from somebody else. तो अब जैसे ये वेदर का मान के चलो कि वेदर का है या पोस्टल इन्फॉर्मेशन से या कुछ और है या कुछ और है, टेलीफोनी इंटरफेसेस हैं, तो एवरी टाइम यू नीड टू टेक सपोर्ट ऑफ समबडी एल्स हु हैज बीन स्पेशलाइज्ड इन दैट पर्टिकुलर कंटेंट। तो अब जैसे मान के चलो कि एक एक्यू वेदर करके ये एक वेबसाइट है ना, दिस इज वन ऑफ द गुड वेबसाइट जहां से हम weather conditions को by supplying some of the informations like आप postal code दीजिए उसको या आप city name दीजिए, तो it will give you the response कि आप जैसे you could see जैसे कि आप probably आप इसको मुंबई लोकेशन दो, तो he will going to search out and give the conditions for the मुंबई कि अभी कैसा है, current air quality क्या है, अच्छा, it's very unhealthy, my goodness. And then what is the today's weather forecast, tonight's weather forecast, tomorrow's weather forecast, something like that. So it's going to give you some of the responses that you could display on your website. अब ये कैसा है, we wanted कि हम इसको we need to, this thing is called as handshaking, कि आप कुछ पैरामीटर दो इस वेबसाइट को from your Salesforce application. Like, what I'm telling is like, this is my Salesforce application, this is accurate AccuWeather. So what I'm going to do is like, मैं उसको कुछ पैरामीटर अप्लाई करूंगा, जैसे कि मैं उसको सिटी नेम या फिर सिटी का जिप कोड वगैरह दूंगा किसको, ये वेदर मैप को, एंड दिस इज माय Salesforce application, this is my Salesforce application. So I'm giving, this website some of the parameter, and in response to that parameter, this website is actually giving me some responses, and that responses, I'm going to display onto my application. So this is something called as integration in short. I say integration बहुत बड़ी चीज है, I'm just explaining you in short. तो जब भी हम ऐसा करते हैं, if I wanted this website, if I wanted this website to be get integrated with my application, I wanted this website कि ये इसको मैं Salesforce के साथ जोड़ूं, तो इंटीग्रेशन के अपार्ट, you need to add this AccuWeather.com whatever the website onto your Salesforce. आपको Salesforce में ऐड करना पड़ता है, कहाँ पे, रिमोट साइट सेटिंग्स में. तो उसके लिए आप create a new remote site setting, then give the address, give the address. So this is what, okay, I'll give the name, sorry, here you need to give the name, and here you need to give the address. So I'm giving this name as to be the open weather map, something like that. I could give some of the description, this is to get the weather conditions supplied, something like that. I could give any description, and then after it has been done, I think here it will give me error because the name should be like this, probably. Let me go with this, and after this has been done, you could now save this. So what we have done, हमने remote site details में, in the remote, this is one of the object. In the remote site details, we added this website, which website, www.accuweather.com. So now we could perform some sort of integration with this website. Now, without doing this, you cannot, exchange the parameters with this website. So if you wanted to have some integration with any of the third-party website, apart from so many other activities, what we do and what we are going to learn in the integration part, the development, one thing what we are learning over here in this module is like, whenever we perform the integration and whenever we wanted to be interacted with some other websites, from the Salesforce, actually we require to add it into the remote sites, right? So this is one of the things. This is also one of the part of your admin training. You need to understand like how to add any website. It's pretty simple thing, it's not like so many. This form is like, there are just two things. You need to give the name, and then you need to give the URL. That's it. Okay. You wanted to give some descriptions for the supporting things, something like that. So up this active. That's it. If you're done with the changes, just press save button, whatever. So this is what the things, and it just means by the remote site settings. Okay. So these were some of the things that we have learned under this topic of the user management. Okay. So after creating the user, what we have started is like user management. So these are the things what we have done under the user management. Now let me start with the new concept, and that is what the role hierarchy. So see, I told you that when we create a user, let me go with this diagram. So yeah. So I told you one thing, when we are creating the users, what are the things that we require? So at the time of creation of a user, so on this diagram, yeah. Basically, we require three things: license, profile, and the role. Now, out of these three things, only the role was something which was optional. So without even assigning the role, we could create the user, and basically that's what we have done. We created 4 users. If you remember, we created 4 users. So what we have done, like, at the time of creation, we assign them licenses, then we assign them profiles also. And what are the users that we have created? So we created, all these users. One second. Yeah. So these are the users that what we created. So we were having one of the Salesforce license. That license we have given to the development user. Then we were having this 3 platform licenses that we gave to this manager, testing, and the customer user. So we created all these 4 users. But none of them is having a role. Role is something in the beginning itself, I told that this is a thing which is optional. So what we are going to do is like, once we create the user, after that we will assign the role. Let's now understand what is the importance of a role, where is the need to assign the role. Although it was optional. See, if you go with this diagram, you see there are so many users over here. There are so many users, right? There are so many users. We created, I created this because this is me. I also created customer, I created development manager and the testing. And these are some of the default users that were there into the org, chatter, security, and the integration. We haven't created, still they were into the org. We call them to be the standard user. We have sabke saath mein, inside your org also. Apart from you, if this is you, if this is you, these are the three users that is being there into everybody's org. तो ये हमारे कुछ कहना चाहिए कि स्टैंडर्ड यूजर सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग है. बट सी नन ऑफ देम, नन ऑफ देम, कोई भी यूजर, चाहे हमने क्रिएट किया यूजर हो, जो पहले से क्रिएटेड है, सभी अगर मैं रोल के कॉलम में जाता हूँ, सी रोल का कॉलम एम्प्टी है, मतलब none of them has been assigned any of the role. So even without assigning the role, now it's being justified that even without assigning the role, we could create the users. We could create, and later on, once we have been created with the users and everything, we give them we give them the licenses, we give them the profiles. Once everything has been done, now if you want, you could assign them a role also. So let's move on to that topic कि roles क्या है, roles का importance क्या होता है, and कैसे कैसे assign करना. So चलिए चलते हैं. तो see, every organization by default have a hierarchy. Hierarchy मतलब management. So it always starts with like there's a CEO सबसे top पे, उसके नीचे हो सकता है कि there could be some of the position, जैसे chief finance officer हो सकता है, आपका chief technical officer हो सकता है, CFO and the CTO, could be vice presidents, program managers, project managers, module leads हो सकते हैं, टेक्निकल आर्किटेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं, कंसल्टेंट्स हो सकते हैं. नीचे में आते हैं अगर अपन तो सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर, सीनियर सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स, देन सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर, एसोसिएट सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर, समथिंग लाइक दैट. सो बाय डिफॉल्ट एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैव एन हायरार्की ऑफ डिफरेंट यानी हायरार्की से इन द सेंस कि बाय डिफॉल्ट एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैव डिफरेंट पोजीशंस. ये तो हर कोई जानता है. दिस इज अ वेरी कॉमन सेंस. Now these designations, these positions, these roles are actually for users. If we have this position VP, if we have this position, there must be someone who we have designated this position. There must be a user who is actually, who is actual vice president of your company. So if this is a designation, if this is a role, this must be given to somebody. This must be given to somebody so that he could execute, what is being required. Having this position, what is the duty of this person? He should behave like that. We should assign this position to somebody. Now, role is something. Role is actually to create a default hierarchy of your organization, to create a diagram like this, and then assign this to somebody. This is what the concept of role. So if we wanted to assign, rather if we wanted to create different positions and then assign the positions to the different users, we should go with the concept of role hierarchy. That is what the thing. And see, every organization have this by default. Every organization have different positions, and they have different people, those who are onto the position. अच्छा, अब एक चीज सुनो. जैसे मैं आपसे पूछूं कि there are so many different roles. CEO is the role, CFO, CEO को छोड़ के let's take the CFO, COO, or probably the vice president, or probably this. तो आप एक चीज सोच के बताओ कि ये role, जैसे अब this is a position, if this is a role, so can this role be given to the single user, or there could be some multiple users having the same role? क्या हो सकता है इसका आंसर? For example, if there's a position software engineer, तो this is one of the role. तो क्या ये ऐसा है कि एक ही यूजर को दिया जा सकता है, और कुड बी लाइक मल्टीपल यूजर्स हैव द सेम रोल? क्या लगता है आपको इसमें?
Multiple users could have the same roles.
Obviously, in an organization, ठीक है, I am agree with this कि चलो एक ही CEO हो सकता है, but then there could be multiple CFO, CEO, territory based, organization based, product based. There could be different vice president. There could be different technical leads for every different business unit. There could be so many associate engineers, so many software engineers, so many senior software engineers that are working. So roles is something like roles just represent a blueprint of the organization hierarchy, nothing else. If somebody asks you what is a role, you need to in a single line to just keep it short. what you could say is like a role is a kind of blueprint, it's a kind of design, it's a kind of template बोलो, design बोलो, blueprint बोलो, this all are one and same thing. तो आपके ऊपर है आपको सेंटेंस कैसा बनाना है. मैं तो दो तीन तरीके बता देता हूँ आपको. So role is something like a design, something like a template, or something like a blueprint of what? Of different designations, different positions of different roles inside the organization. And then these positions are assigned to whom? Who is the user, who is the CEO, who is the CFO, and something like that. So role just represent what is the default hierarchies of different users at your organization. That is what I think. That is what I think. Okay. So our batch is like let me go with this. Our batch is what we are. It's like batch 201. Batch 201. So for this, for this batch 201. We're going with the same example. So let's create this hierarchy. At the top, there's a CEO, and we are going to assign this to whom? We are going to assign this to system administrator. Who is the system administrator? This user is the system administrator. Your batch 201 training. This user. So we'll assign this position CEO to this user. Batch training 206. I mean this is the user. Training my Salesforce batch while I user. No, that's because he's a system admin, so we'll assign CEO position to him. After that, CFO, COO, and CTO. Let's have these three positions. These are the managers. और उसके बाद में vice president जो है वो customer user को. Because see, we only have 4 to 5 users जिस पे हम खेल सकते हैं. These are the 4 users that we created. Who created? System admin created. So there are at least 5 users. एक हमको पकड़ के. If I count myself, तो इन काउंटिंग माई सेल्फ देयर आर 5 यूजर्स. अदरवाइज हम बोलेंगे हाँ ये 4 यूजर्स हैं, बट मैंने अपने आप को काउंट नहीं किया. तो अगर मैं खुद को भी काउंट कर लेता हूँ तो नाउ वी हैव 5 यूजर्स. ओके, इंक्लूडिंग मी आल्सो. तो लेट्स क्रिएट दिस हायरार्की. Let's create these roles first of thing, and then assign the roles. Assign CEO to whom? System admin. Assign this to this user. Assign CFO to this user. अभी एक चीज और concept समझो यहाँ पे. It's like if I take the CTO as a user. So for the CTO, vice president is subordinate because he is working, he's lower in the hierarchy. He is working beneath of the CTO. So for the CTO, vice president is whom? Vice president is subordinate. Like let's compare to CTO, CEO, and CFO because they are actually on the same positions. They are having the same equality and they are having the same priorities and something like that. So these are called as siblings. If the two persons are working on the same hierarchy, I could say, so they are actually siblings in the organization. They are actually siblings. And someone who's working below to a position, someone who's reporting to this person is actually subordinate. तो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. सबऑर्डिनेट कौन होता है? जो किसी के हाथ के नीचे काम करता है. और जो साथ में इकट्ठे हैं ना, सीएफओ, सीईओ एंड सीटीओ, दे आर एक्चुअली एट द सेम लेवल. आई मीन उनकी रिस्पांसिबिलिटीज अलग हैं, बट दे आर एक्चुअली ऑन द सेम लेवल. So those who are on the same level, they are called as siblings. And the one who's actually working below to this, तो वो है subordinate. अगर मैं CEO को देखते हुए इन सबको देखूं, so everybody is actually subordinate to CEO. CEO सबसे ऊपर होता है फिर ऐसा. तो ये दो टर्म्स जो आपको बताने थे. Now let's create this, let's create this all roles inside the organization. So how could we create this? Let's do that. So there are two different ways to do this. If I just open this, अगर मैं इसको यहाँ पर कोई रोल नहीं है तो एक तरीका तो ये होता है कि मैं यूजर को ओपन करूँ और यहाँ से भी रोल दे सकता हूँ. I could even edit here also. मैं यहाँ से भी दे सकता हूँ उसको. आप देखो, एक तरीका तो ये होता है, एक तरीका ये होता है. ठीक है, I'll show you some different way to do that. Rather going with user to user. मैं रोल से बताता हूँ. तो यहाँ से नहीं जाने का आपने. If you go see in the manage users setting, manage users option, there is a option for the roles itself. So कहीं और खोलते हैं इसको. Yes, so many tabs. So एक तरफ मेरे को यूजर्स रहने दो और दूसरी साइड में मैं रोल्स खोलता हूँ. ये रहा रोल्स. ठीक है. Now see, this is just a dedicated user interface for the role. यहाँ से जाओ. Better. How to go? Set up, administer, manage user and roles. Go with this setting. So it will show you कि आप roles को form कर सकते हो territory based, product based, company based, जैसा भी आप चाहें. If you wanted to don't see this message once again, तो आप ठीक है, इसको don't show कर दो, अगली बार नजर नहीं आएगा. Set up this. Okay. So this is what is your organization, right? Batch 201. The first position over here is like CEO. जैसे यहाँ पे मैंने ये it was minimized, मैंने उसको expand किया, nothing else. So in the see in I mean in lower to the hierarchy of CEO, you could see CFO, you could see COO, you could see SVP, SVP, Senior Vice President for the customer sales and human. And if you wanted, now I'll show you कि how to app. ये क्या? This is something a default hierarchy. ये तो Salesforce की बनाई हुई है. Now let's customize this hierarchy according to our organization. हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के हिसाब से इसको कस्टमाइज करते हैं. हाउ कुड वी डू दैट? तो बिकॉज सी आई डिसाइडेड दिस टू बी माय हायरार्की, है ना. ये एग्जांपल है हमारा कि आई वांटेड दिस इज वी आर क्रिएटिंग फॉर दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. व्हाट इज द नेम ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन? बैच 201. This is the name of the organization. Now for this organization, what should be the hierarchy? There should be a position called as CEO. Do we have a position CEO? Yes, we have. चलो अच्छी बात. नहीं होती तो मैं क्रिएट करता. I mean, just below to CEO, there's that 3 positions. CFO. Let me come see whether we have CFO. Yes, we have. Whether we have COO. Yeah, we do have. Do we have CTO? Do we have? No, we don't have. So we don't have any position called as CTO. So let's now create that. First of all, understand to how to create the role. And then second part, how to assign the role to the user. वो बात की बात है. पहले अभी देखो जो नहीं है उसको क्रिएट करते हैं. So see, CTO is actually a position. CTO is a position. First of all, this is not there into the hierarchy. अपन को create करने का इसको अभी. This position reports to CEO. I mean, if I ask who's the manager of CTO, CEO is not the manager. He's the sibling. CEO is also not the manager. For the CTO, who's the manager? This is the question. For the CTO, who's the manager? CEO is like sibling, CFO is also sibling, vice president is subordinate. Now, who's the manager of CTO? CEO is the manager, right? So this position CTO, I wanted to create this position, but it should report to whom? CEO. This position belongs to CEO. I mean, who's the manager? CEO is the manager. So I should create this inside CEO. That is what the requirement. So see, यहाँ पर कैसे edit, delete, assign. Just understand the options for the CEO. Edit, delete, assign. There's an option, add role. So if you wanted to create a role inside this, below CEO, go with this. If you wanted to create a position below CFO, go with this. If you wanted to create a position below COO, then go with this, add role. I wanted to create a position CTO below whom? Below CEO. That is why CEO pe gaya and then add role kiya add role. What the position I wanted? I wanted to create a position called as CTO. This is the position. Okay. This position will report to whom? CEO. बिल्कुल सही है. What the name you wanted to be displayed over here? CTO. Same name. And let me now save this. One role has been added. What is the label? CEO. Who this role is going to report? I mean, who is the manager? This is the manager. Everything. Let's go with the role once again. Okay. Now you see this position. See, CEO, CFO, and below to CEO, it's CFO, COO, and CTO. Right? So one position we created. Now below CTO, we should create one more position. CTO के अंदर में VP create करने का, right? So let's go to CTO and then add role. पहले इसको ये जो diagram है इसको complete करो. After that only try to assign the roles to the user something. पहले वो complete करो कि how many different positions you're having inside the org. Save it. That's it. Okay. So one more position or one more role we have created. One position we created. कहाँ पर है ये? Just expand CTO. CTO के अंदर दिखेगा आपको C वाइस प्रेसिडेंट. इसके बाद में ये चाहो तो आप रख सकते हो, हटा भी सकते हो. मेरा कहना है कि रहने दो उसको, हमको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है उससे. This is our hierarchy. Up to this is our hierarchy. This is our hierarchy. So what we have the organization, and we have CEO, and we have just below to CEO there are 3 people: CFO, CEO, and CTO. CEO is the common manager for everybody, and these are siblings among each other. These are siblings. And CTO is actually whom? CTO, vice president is whom? It's a subordinate to CTO. Who's the immediate manager for VP? CTO is the immediate manager for this. Who's the general manager for everybody? Who's the general manager? The CEO is the general manager for every one of them, right? So this is what the concept of hierarchy, role hierarchy. So once you have done with the once you have done with the creation of positions, creation of roles, now is the time to assign the role. Because सिर्फ roles ही create नहीं करना है, उस पे लोगों को recruit भी तो करना है. If we have this position, There must be somebody who is actually holding that position, right? So ये था पहला काम अपना, create all of the position what is there into the hierarchy of your organization. Now, once you're done with these changes, once you have created all the position, now is the time to assign this position to somebody. So how many users we have? We have 4 or 5 users altogether, including, counting the system administrator. We have 5 users. Let's now assign this to, let's assign this whole roles, everybody, every role to every one of them, right? चलो वो कैसे करना आप देखते हैं. So that I was saying that there are 2 different ways to do that. आप यूजर लेवल पे भी जाके कर सकते हो और रोल पे भी कर सकते हो. You could go to every user. For example, you wanted to assign this somebody, इसको आप रोल देना चाहते हो, तो ना you could just open the integration user, edit करो उसको, and then you could give him a role. आप उसको जो चाहे रोल दे सकते हो. These all are the roles. But even the CTO जो आपने अभी create किया वो भी highlight हो गया. Vice President आपने create किया वो भी highlight हो गया. This is also one of the way. आप user level पे जाके ना, what I have done, मैं क्या क्या अभी, I just go to this user integration and then I edit the properties of this. So this is one of the way. User level से भी कर सकते हैं और role level से भी कर सकते हैं. This is what the role. यहाँ से भी कर सकते हो आप. How I wanted to assign, assign करना है CEO assign. तो यहाँ देखो assign का बटन है. Just assign this. तो किसको देना है? तो these are the list of the users. All assigns जिसको assign हुआ है. या फिर पोजीशन वाइज भी आपके पास है यहाँ पे. ऑल असाइंड अनअसाइंड यूजर्स को हम सिलेक्ट करना है. सो आई वांटेड टू गिव दिस पोजीशन, ये सबसे बड़ी पोजीशन है. तो ट्रेनिंग बैच यूजर जो है हमारा सिस्टम एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर, उसको देना है. तो सिलेक्ट करो, ऐड करो. कौन सी पोजीशन ऐड करो? तो देखो आप ये सारी पोजीशंस, आप इफ यू ऑब्जर्व एवरी पोजीशन, ये हाईलाइटेड है अभी, ऑटोमेटिकली हाईलाइटेड है. दिस इंडिकेट्स कि यू आर वर्किंग फॉर दिस पोजीशन, दिस रोल. सीईओ के लिए काम कर रहे हो आप, and you are giving this to this. अच्छा, एक से ज्यादा यूजर ऐड कर सकते हैं कि? ऑफ कोर्स वी कैन डू दैट आल्सो. ठीक है, बट अभी वैसा नहीं करने वाले अपन. वी फॉर एवरी पोजीशन वी आर गोइंग टू गिव वन यूजर. बट ऐसा नहीं है कि एक ही रोल एक यूजर को देना, ये हमेशा याद रखना. इसलिए मैंने एकदम बिगनिंग में क्लियर करके दिया आपको, क्योंकि हम फॉर आवर एग्जांपल वी आर गोइंग टू असाइन ईच रोल टू एवरी रोल टू ओनली वन पर्सन. बट ये ऐसा एक्चुअली नहीं होता है, ये ध्यान रखो. इसलिए मैंने शुरुआत में क्लियर किया. हमारे पास यूजर्स कम है ना, आप समझो मेरे पास है कितने यूजर, कुल मिला के 5 यूजर्स. तो फिर मेरे को ऑब्वियसली 5 रोल है तो एक एक सबको देना पड़ेगा. लेकिन ऐसा एक्चुअल में नहीं होता. प्रैक्टिकल में आप एक रोल जो है काफी सारे यूजर्स को दे सकते हो. सो इफ यू डन विद दिस, जस्ट सेव इट. इफ हाँ, दोनों तरफ है बटन, आप सेव कर लो इसको. तो पहला यूजर जो है अपना, ये वाला यूजर, अभी देखो मैं यहाँ पे रोल नहीं दिख रहा है. लेट मी नाउ रिफ्रेश दिस एंड सी व्हाट हैपेंस. The changes, what happens, the role मिल गया इसको ना. We see CEO has been, this user has been assigned to this role, CEO. Let's now go with the another position, the CFO. CFO किसको देना है मैं पहले देख लेता हूँ. CFO we wanted to give it to the manager. Okay, so CFO पे चले, assign करें. To whom we wanted to give? We wanted to give to the manager. देखो CFO highlighted है यहाँ पे, manager, save it. ठीक है, उसके बाद में COO. CO we wanted to give to the testing user. So let's go to the COO, assign. Let's say the testing user, add him, and then save it. Okay, this is also done. उसके बाद में CTO we wanted it to give to the development user. So let's go to this CTO and then assign this position. Assign to whom? To the development user, right? Select the development and then save it. The last thing, we have a position vice president. We wanted to give this to the customer user. So let's go to the vice president and assign, and then select the customer user from here and save it. Okay, so now if I go over here and if I refresh, see, so for every now user we have a role, and this we have done, we haven't done with this default user जो अपने system users थे, उसको नहीं दिया अपने. उसको वैसे भी देकर काम नहीं, उनका पासवर्ड ही नहीं पता है ना अपने को. We don't know the password. How could we log in? If I at all wanted to log in with this, then this, I don't know the password. But I know the password of these 3 people because these are the users what we have created. इसलिए मैं इसके ऊपर काम नहीं कर रहा हूँ. मैं कर सकता हूँ, आपको एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ. फायदा क्या होगा, आपके पास पासवर्ड ही नहीं इनके. These all are the वो डिफॉल्ट यूजर्स है आपके, है ना. सिस्टम यूजर जो है आपके, कस्टम थोड़ी ना है. तो फिर इसके ऊपर काम मत करो, आपको फायदा नहीं. हाँ, रादर व्हाट यू हैव क्रिएटेड उसके ऊपर सारा काम करो, ऐसा है. तो दिस इज व्हाट द कांसेप्ट ऑफ रोल. दिस इज व्हाट द कांसेप्ट ऑफ रोल हायरार्की. अब यहाँ पर एक पॉइंट आता है. सी, आई विल आस्क यू वन क्वेश्चन, यू थिंक ऑफ इट एंड गिव मी द आंसर. फॉर एग्जांपल, नाउ सी, a development user, I mean, understand the question. I'm asking this question to everybody. Okay. So see, I'm asking you this question. Now, for example, this development user has created a record. Okay. For example, the development user has created a record. Let me show you that. So go to the development user and I'm just logging into the R. Now, for example, I'm into the development user software. Let's go to the account object. Let's go to the account object. So let's assume that this is the development user who has logged in, and he go to the account and he development user record number 1. Okay. Development user record number 1. Type prospect. Industry banking. Annual revenue 10 lakh. Rating hot. And then faxes this website is test.com. Ownership is public. And with few more details like customer priority is high and active status is CS. Let me now save this record. Okay. So what we have done, let's take this as an assumption. The development user has created a record. This is the record. This is the record. Who created this? Who is the owner of this? You see the owner. Who is the owner? Development user. Development user has created a record. Now let's understand the question, what I'm asking. The development user has created a record. Record could be account, contact, opportunity, any of that could be into some of the custom objects. Now my question to you is like, this record should be visible to whom? Development user has created a record. I wanted the answer like out of these 4 users, ये record किसको किसको दिखना चाहिए? Whether the record should be visible to the customer, I mean vice president or customer, whatever you wanted to say. He is the subordinate. The record should be visible to testing and the manager because they are the siblings, or rather the record should be visible only to the CEO because he is the manager. Okay. So I'm giving you these 3 options, or rather 4, whatever. Okay. A record has been created by development user, or rather any of the user, to whom the record should be visible by default. Yes. Any answers? Default, what should happen? वो क्या होता है उस पर बाद में चर्चा करेंगे. According to your assumptions, what should be happen? If a user create a record, so who should be the other people, those who could visible, the record should be visible to the other people. So who kon rahe? That is what the question. Just think of it and give the answer. Miss Amira.
CEO, only to the CEO because others are his siblings now.
Okay. Okay. So Amira was saying like the record should be visible only to the CEO because other are siblings and VP is subordinate. Yes. Any other? Yes, guys. Any other? I'm just asking you guys to share your opinion. इसमें इतना क्या पूछ लिया मैंने जो तुम लोग कुछ बोलना ही नहीं चाहते. Okay, visible to CTO, user and CEO. Okay, chalo. See, what should default happen? What is the default functionality is like? Not more functionality. What I could say is that what is the ideal situation? Ideally, what should happen? That is what we are discussing. Ideally, what should happen is if this user create a record, rather this user create, rather this user, rather this, any one of them creates a record. Ideally, what should happen in the ideal scenarios, what we are discussing this, right? In terms of ideal scenarios, if it's like, if this user creates a record, ideally the record should be visible to him because he's the owner. He created the record. So that's why the record should be visible to him and to his manager. Who's the manager? CEO is the manager. This is what the ideal thing is. Ideally, this should happen. If this user creates a record testing, so it should be visible to him because he's the owner. The record should not be visible to CTO and the vice president or CFO because these are siblings and the subordinates. But the record should be visible to CEO because he's the manager. So ideally, what should happen? Ideally, what should happen is like, ideally, the record should be visible to the owner and owner and the manager. I mean, these are the two peoples. These are the two peoples who should have the access. And it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like visible, or it shouldn't be accessible, whatever. It shouldn't be accessible to any of the siblings as well as subordinates. Okay. So what should ideally happen is that in any one of them, not just development, it could be, this is for testing, this is for the manager, even for the CNA, for everybody. Any one of the user, if he creates a record, the record should ideally be visible to whom? To him, because he's the owner, and to his manager. Apart from these two people, like C2 and CO, nobody should else, including CF1, CO, and the vice president. These guys shouldn't have the access. Okay. Because this is the concept of role hierarchy. यही तो concept है. चलो let's see कि whether this concept has been implemented properly or not. और अगर नहीं तो क्यों नहीं, और फिर क्या करना, वो हम इसके आगे चर्चा करते हैं. तो अभी क्या हुआ है कि development user has created a record. See, we are on to the login of development user, and I could see that development user creates a record. Now if I go to the account once again, now I could see that development user को record दिख रहा है, और दिखना भी चाहिए because he is the owner. Let's now log out from here. Log out करता हूं. A second person is whom? Manager. What I'm saying that this development has created a record. उसके अलावा manager को दिखना चाहिए. Who's the manager? ये अपन जिस login में है अभी, this is the manager. यहाँ भी आना चाहिए. Let's go to the account object. Account में चलते हैं, all accounts में चलते हैं, और D की लिस्ट पे जाते हैं अपन ने. डेवलपमेंट यूजर D की लिस्ट पे, ये देखो आप, इसको भी दिख रहा है डेवलपमेंट यूजर रिकॉर्ड नंबर. हु इज द ओनर? ही इज नॉट द ओनर. ये ओनर नहीं है उसका. ट्रेनिंग माय सेल्सफोर्स नाम है इसका. इसका ये ओनर कौन है? यूजर डेवलपमेंट. तो चलो, दो चीजें सिग्निफाई हो गई यहाँ पे कि द रिकॉर्ड इज विजिबल टू द मैनेजर, इवन द रिकॉर्ड इज विजिबल टू डेवलपमेंट. अब ये है पॉजिटिव टेस्टिंग. नेगेटिव टेस्टिंग पे चलते हैं. Here what we wanted, apart from these two people, the record shouldn't be visible to him, manager shouldn't be visible to the testing, it shouldn't be visible to the customer. इनको नहीं दिखना चाहिए. तो एक बार इसको भी चेक कर लेते हैं, राइट? चलो, इसको भी दिख रहा है ना, आपके ट्रेनिंग माय सेल्सफोर्स जो आपका सीईओ है, जो आपका सिस्टम एडमिन है, उसको दिख रहा है. ओके, दैट्स अ ग्रेट थिंग. लेट्स नाउ गो विद दिस. लेट्स गो टू द यूजर्स वंस अगेन. सो ये तो हो गया अपना. इसको क्लोज करता हूँ. Let's go with the development user ने record बनाया था. So let's go with the manager users because he is one of the siblings. Who are the siblings? Manager and testing, they are the siblings, right? First now test with the siblings. तो manager पे login मार के देखता हूँ. Let's go to the account and let me go with the all accounts. Let's go with the list of D. I could see the record. See, development, the user, manager user could also see the record. Development users record number 1. Although this shouldn't happen, but this is happening. This is what happening. This user, manager, he is the subordinate. Sorry, he is the sibling. He is the sibling. He is the sibling. Manager is the sibling of development user. And he could see the record, what a development has created. This shouldn't be happened, but this is what happening over here. उसको कैसे अवॉइड करना, वो डिफरेंट स्टोरी है. दैट इज व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट इट टुमारो. लेकिन वो चलो, अभी आपको मैं पहले उस चीज तो समझा दूं. ओके, मैनेजर को देख रहा है. चलो मैं यहाँ से लॉग आउट करता हूँ. लेट मी ट्राई विथ अनदर सिबलिंग एंड दैट इज टेस्टिंग यूजर. तो मैं टेस्टिंग पे लॉग इन करता हूँ. अकाउंट ऑब्जेक्ट पे जाता हूँ, ऑल अकाउंट्स पे जाता हूँ, डी की लिस्ट पे चलता हूँ. इवन दिस टेस्टिंग यूजर, he was the second sibling. He is also able to see the record. See, user development record number 1. This should again happen, shouldn't be happen, but this is what happening. चलो, इसको भी दिख रहा है. Ideally होना नहीं चाहिए था ऐसा. Let's now go with the subordinate. तो ये सबको नजर आ रहा है. ऊपर से मैं लेके आऊं तो सबको नजर आ रहा है. Let's now test with the customer because he is the subordinate. इसको तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं दिखना चाहिए. कस्टमर पे जाते हैं, लॉग इन करते हैं. Let's go to the account object और यहाँ पे all accounts में जाते हैं. Let's go with the list of D, development user records. So everybody It's become a public toilet. कोई भी आके access कर सकता है इसको. This shouldn't be happen. ये नहीं होना चाहिए. This is what the ideology of role, और वही यहाँ पे hurt हो रही है. What was the ideal situation? If this user creates the record, it should be visible to him and to his manager. But what we are seeing right now is like something like a public toilet. सब कुछ मिल रहा है यार यहाँ पे. This shouldn't be happen. This is what hurting the ideology of role. तो ये कैसे अचीव करते हैं उस पर हम बात करते हैं. लेकिन एक इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है यहाँ पे जो इंटरव्यू पे आता है. They will ask you, I mean, the things related to role, जैसा कि what is the use of roles and everything in that. Now they will ask you the second question in the, okay, if I created this role and for example, I set up the role, I set up the hierarchy, I have all these positions, they assign, I created the position, I assign this role, I assign the role to the user also. Now they will put up you this question. Now, if this user creates a record with the concept of role hierarchy, अब वो role hierarchy बोलेगा आपको, with the concept of role hierarchy, if this creates a record, does the record is visible to his siblings, subordinates, or something like that? Ideally, because it shouldn't be visible. So can we achieve this in the role hierarchy? आपको बोलना है नहीं. Role hierarchy is just a kind of template. बस. Role hierarchy will create roles and used to assign the roles to the people, to the user. That's it. But okay, I understood this is the ideology of creating a role. हम लोग अलग-अलग roles, अलग-अलग designations क्यों बनाते हैं? Because we want to put up something कि ये चीजें इससे hide करना है, वो चीजें उसको दिखाना है, something like that. But with the concept of role hierarchy, record sharing is not, record is actually visible to everybody by default. If you wanted to have this control, if this user creates a record, should be visible to him and to his manager. And apart from these two people, nobody else, like the siblings as a subordinate, they couldn't access the record. So there's a different concept for that. From tomorrow, we are going to start something called as record visibility. So how to have this control on the record visibility? If this, creates a record, right now, what is happening? This record is visible to everybody. You could try the same thing with the testing user also. आप testing user पे login मारो और एक आध record create करो, and then try to see whether the record is visible. Testing को तो by default रहेगा because he is the owner. Apart from this, CEO को भी रहेगा, CFO को भी रहेगा, CTO को भी रहेगा, VP को भी रहेगा. Because so far we haven't gone to that concept of record visibility. Now, how to control that record visibility? कैसे लाते हैं उसको अपने कंट्रोल में? That is what we are going to start by tomorrow, right? तो ये समझ के चलो कि on what line and length we are going towards this training. तो रोल तो हमने यहाँ समझ लिया, but then what is the drawback I could say with the role is that role just set up the template and the design and everything. Role doesn't provide you the record visibility. To achieve the record visibility, there is a separate thing in Salesforce. There's a separate settings we are going to learn for this. With the role hierarchy, it's not possible. What record visibility is not possible. By default, this record is by default any of the record from any of the user, he creates, and he creates. The record is going to visible for everybody. Now, how to control that? That is what we are going to start by tomorrow. Okay, so today do this. Tomorrow we'll see the second thing, something called as OW. This is really important topic. This is the most important topic of this training. One of the important topic of this training. Every topic is equally important. This is one of the important topic. Okay, so let me first of all stop this.